All right. There we go. It looks okay in here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, well, what's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in tonight. I am just about ready to go here. I just had this is my first little, the live stream will begin shortly title screen. So I'm upgrading one little thing at a time every time we do one of these live streams. So let's see here. Got to get the old phone plugged in before we get going. Wait for a few more people to join in. For those of you who are here, thanks for spending your Monday night with me. Even if you only spend part of your Monday night, I really appreciate it. This channel has been kind of taken off, catching like wildfire here recently. This week, or last week rather, crazy how many views I got. The Stag Junior video hit over 1,000 people, or 1,000 views, and subscribers coming in faster than ever. So I'm really excited, really happy about the way it's all going. So yeah, let me see here. I think I am good to go. Let me test my banner here. I just made these really quickly. Beautiful. All right, and let me get a little overlay action going. Throw these guys up. Okay, well, sweet. If you guys are tuning in right now, let me know that you're here. Let me know what you're sipping on. As we get going, say hello. Any comments, questions, throw them at me. Every live stream we've been getting more and more people coming in, and for today's live stream, I thought we would try something a little bit different. If you wouldn't mind, let me know that you can see and hear me okay. I think we're good to go. Everything looks like it's working, but I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. It says my audio stream's current bit rate is 0. Can you guys hear me okay? Please do let me know. Let me check all my settings and things here. Check. Okay. Sweet. Thank you, Sean. Thank you. It's so nice when someone responds. It's like talking on stage when no one in the audience will answer you. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started then. This was such a last-minute stream today. I said last week that I was going to move to Monday nights. The Bourbon Junkies are on Tuesday nights, and my God, nobody wants to compete with that. I was trying to jump on an hour or two before they would do their live streams, but you don't want to be doing that. 4 hours for people to tune into Whiskey Tube straight live is a lot to ask. So I don't think there's much competition on Monday nights, as far as I know. I'm not sure if there's any football on tonight or anything. I haven't been following the season at all this year because of COVID and all that. But I thought for this live stream we would do a 3-part tasting, and every part is going to be a totally different discussion or challenge or whatever you want to call it. So for the first part here, I wanted to talk about some entry-level scotches. This is both for my bourbon drinking friends. I know a lot of you have been asking me. A lot of my friends here in Columbus, my percussion and drummer friends from the industry have been asking me, hey, I drink a lot of bourbon, but what scotch should I choose? So I thought we would start off with that, something that could be kind of fun for all of us. And, maybe a little bit basic, but it's always great to revisit some of these basics and these entry-level offerings. And then for the second part of the stream, I thought that I would do, wait, what did I say was going to be the second part of the stream? Let me check in. Oh, yeah, find the non-store pick is going to be the second part. So this is going to be a fun little blind tasting experiment. I have 3 bottlings of 1792 foolproof behind me. One is a shelfer, average 1792 foolproof. The other 2 are store picks. I have one store pick that I think stands out to me. Now, I haven't sampled these 1792 bottlings that I have in at least a month, maybe even 2 months. So, I'm not coming into this having freshly tasted these, and I want to see, can I identify which one is the non-store pick? Basically, is there one that is significantly worse or for some reason tastes blended, like they've blended some more sharp flavors or more obvious flavors out of it? So we're going to go and do that for the second part with 1792. And then for the third part of the stream, I'm going to be checking out which Larceny barrel proof batch is best. And, I really liked Larceny barrel proof when it first came out. I was also fairly young in my bourbon experience. That was basically a year ago that first batch dropped. And, I was mostly a Scotch drinker at that point. I remember liking it, but then when I went back and revisited, I was like, I don't know if I like this so much. And, the B520 got tons of hype that second batch that was released from Whiskey Advocate. They voted that their Whiskey of the Year. I believe it was Whiskey Advocate that did that. And I thought that was kind of a shocking decision. But, you know, and then C920 I recently picked up, and I've had hardly any of my C920. So I'm not as familiar with that batch. So I'm going to just blind taste through all three of those batches and see if anything stands out to me. Now, full disclosure, you know, the Larceny barrel proof stuff, as I've revisited since my initial tasting of it, it always impresses me less and less. But maybe tonight will be a totally different story, having, you know, doing them live. So that's the plan. And, you know, to ensure that they're blind, there are no stickers on the bottoms of the cups, none of that kind of stuff, no labeled anything. I poured all the pours in a row, labeled them A, B, and C, told my fiance, and she mixed all of those up. And so all of this is going to be completely blind. I have two note cards behind me that say Larceny and they say 1792, and those are the note cards that I'm going to pick up and use to determine, you know, which is which. So let's go ahead and get started here. I see Ujal is in the chat. What's up, man? It's good to see you. Stuart, hey, good luck. Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in, Stuart. And if for those of you in the chat right now, Stuart is responsible for me obtaining a 1983 Old Granddad bottled in bond, which is up there from National Distillers. One of my favorite pours I've ever had. And also an early 2010s Weller 12, one of the raised wheat bottles. So that is really cool. Thank you so much, Stuart. Those were incredible gifts, man. And I can't tell you what that means to me. What's up, Josh McClellan? Josh McClellan in the chat. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started here. So I have three main bottles that I wanted to taste through right now and talk about in terms of beginner scotches. My go-to for beginner scotches, whether it's a bourbon drinker or just anyone who is unfamiliar with scotch, I always lead them to the Glenmorangie 10-year-old. It is tried and true in my book. But there are two other highly notable and, you know, bottlings that are consumed the world over, right, for young Scotch drinkers or beginning Scotch drinkers. One is Glenlivet 12, and you can see I only have a mini bottle of both of these pours. I don't own Glenlivet 12 for whatever reason. And I also have Glenfiddich 12. And I am less familiar with these bottlings compared to the Glenmorangie 10. So I wanted to just taste through these and talk about their different flavor profiles and who I might recommend each of these pours for, whether it's a bourbon drinker, someone used to a particular kind of drink, someone used to a certain proof, flavor profile, etc. And so I think the first 30, 40 minutes of the stream, we're going to talk about these entry-level scotches. And heck, I might breeze through these. I don't even know. But here we go. So first thing I'm going to pour here is the Glenmorangie 10-year-old. My first review on the channel was for this Glenmorangie 10-year. And, you know, it's funny. The first time you do one of these reviews, it takes you a million hours to try to record and edit the damn thing. But, you know, it was a great learning experience. And since then, I do feel that I've gotten a little bit better at doing these. So the second glass is going to be Glenlivet 12. And I think one of the first scotches I ever tasted before I was, like, actually a whiskey drinker was Glenlivet 12. And I remember being like, ugh, you know, I hated it. That and some Johnny Walker bottlings freaked me out. Because of just the taste of 100% barley and the taste of peat in the Johnny Walker stuff. Totally wigged me out there. Okay, and the third glass we're going to be having here is the Glenfiddich 12-year. All right, Rick. Rick says, good pick. Rick, I think you're maybe talking about the Glenmorangie 10, but if you are, thank you. It is a great pick. Hey, for those of you in here right now, as we get started, if you wouldn't mind just hitting the like button on the video, that would help so much. 11 people in here and 1 like. It'd be great if we could get 11 likes. Thank you so much. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to start with my most familiar pour here. Again, Glenmorangie 10-year. This is aged in a combination of two different kinds of barrels. We have refill American, you know, ex-bourbon casks, basically. So barrels that have held bourbon first and then are filled with Scotch for the Scotch maturation there for that period. And it's also got some first fill American oak, so stuff that has not been used for bourbon yet. And so that's going to give you a nice combination of vanilla from the new casks, and some nice caramels, toffees, and other things from the older used casks. And, the Glenmorangie profile is a very floral and very light fruity profile. So let's see what we get on the nose here. Rick says Johnny Walker Green and Monkey Shoulder. Man, I tell you what, Johnny Walker Green is a great value. And Rick, you might have commented on one of my old videos. Maybe that's what you're referring to actually right now. But yeah, Johnny Green, absolutely a killer blend. I think maybe the standout of the Johnny Walker line. And Monkey Shoulder, a little sweet for me, but still a solid choice to introduce people to Scotch. And I know a lot of people that love that stuff. Okay, so the first thing you get on the Glenmorangie here is just a ton of vanilla right off the bat. You get some nice, like, crisp green apple in there, some pear notes, some pineapple notes. It's really, really, like, tropical. It just smells great. There's not a ton of alcohol. I mean, this thing comes in at 43% ABV, which is, like, the most middle-of-the-road ABV for entry-level scotches. It's better than a 40%, so the fact that it's 43 is really great. It's a great tropical vanilla-type nose. Yeah, like light caramel, that kind of thing, but it's nothing like a bourbon caramel. It's not that spicy, heavy, like mouth-coating caramel. Really, really nice and light. Okay, moving on to the Glenlivet 12. I want to nose all of these in a row before I taste them and kind of compare that way. Oh, wow. Okay, so the Glenlivet. Wow, there's definitely a little bit of a different profile here. There's more of a sort of funkiness to this, a slight funkiness. I'm not talking like Rick House aged oak funk or anything like that, but it's not as crisp and clean as the Glenmorangie 10. Yeah, it's almost like butter pecan ice cream in a weird way with some caramel going on in there and vanilla, but I can't get this little bit of nuttiness is really prevalent to me. Yeah, like buttercream and pecan for some reason. Hey, Nick, what's up, man? Nick Allen in the chat. Hola. Love that you're back in Columbus. Hopefully we can hang out this week or sometime soon. I still have your Whiskey War barrel selects back there. I've got to get those back to you. Okay, so going back and forth here, Glenmorangie 10. Oh, yeah, creamy vanilla and tropical fruits. Glenlivet 12, slightly spicier. I said there's this weird butter, pecan, cream note in there and a little bit of a heavier caramel note going on. And finally, let's round this out with the Glenfiddich 12. Let's see what the Glenfiddich 12 has to offer. And Glenfiddich has this, even though this is a mini bottle, this characteristic shape, this triangular shape of the bottle that you'll recognize Glenfiddich by. So Glenfiddich takes on a totally different profile than these two. It is much more herbal and vegetal. What do we got in here in the chat? A couple people here. Hey, Nick, you got 1792 foolproof store pick in the glass. I'm going to have 2 of those in my glass here soon. Michael Johnson, you could do an entire episode comparing the 12-year-old La Santa, Quinta Ruban, and Nectar d'Or. Yeah, you could. I drank the last of my Nectar d'Or, I think, 2 nights ago. So no more of that. I have a little bit of La Santa left, and I have the old 12-year Quinta Ruban that I'm nursing because I love the 12-year, the older bottling, more than the new 14-year with the green label. OSU Marching Band, far cry from junior high drumming, no? Well, it is a far cry from junior high. I assume you know me from junior high drumming, so I don't know who this is, but what's up? How you doing? It is definitely a far cry from that. Okay, back to it. So, back into the Glenfiddich 12. So, like I was saying, this is a much more herbal and vegetal nose. It almost reminds you of an Irish whiskey in that way. If you've ever smelled maybe a Redbreast 12, there's a nice Redbreast sampler pack that you can get, which is wonderful, a great way to sample some Irish whiskeys. They are a much greener, not in terms of rye spice green, but just like herbal and vegetal, like you're out in a garden type green smell. And that's what I'm getting off this Glenfiddich 12 here. It's a far cry from the tropical fruit notes and vanilla of the Glenmorangie and the sort of buttercream caramel of the Glenlivet 12. And of course, you do get a little bit of light caramel here as well on the Glenfiddich 12 with those herbal and vegetal notes. But we have really three distinct different pours here. And, to be honest, I said it a little bit earlier, but like Glenlivet 12, I've only had a handful of times. Same with Glenfiddich 12. I've never owned bottles of these. And I think that's because I got stuck in my Glenmorangie rut, and I never really ventured off. I've had the higher aged offerings of these other brands, but never their baseline 12-year offerings. Mrs. Galvin, oh my gosh, Mrs. Galvin. So Mrs. Galvin was my middle school band teacher and a lifelong friend and someone who just means the world to me. And so that's really cool, Mrs. Galvin, that you're in here checking this out. Maybe this is this is not a great thing to be drinking whiskey in front of my middle school band director. Okay, well, let's go to the palate now. Let's check out the Glenmorangie 10 on the palate and see, if anything changes between nose to palate. Really soft and easy going. A little bit of kick right there in the mid palate. A little bit of kick of spice into a nice and smooth finish. So the Glenmorangie 10 is a slightly watery offering. I believe all of these are chill filtered and likely to some degree colored, I would imagine, because they are the entry-level offerings. And that's a big difference with Scotch and bourbon. In the Scotch world, you can color your Scotch to make it look older than it is. And a lot of times, same thing in the bourbon world, they will chill filter Scotch so that when it gets cold, it doesn't get cloudy. And so it looks appealing at all times on the shelf after coming out of a cold truck, etc. So I assume that all of these are chill filtered and colored. But when you chill filter things, you strip away some of the lipids and the fatty acids, and the mouthfeel diminishes and it gets thinner in the mouth. You can really tell that in this Glenmorangie offering. It is an entry-level offering, but it's really, really thin. On the same, token, though, it, I think, is meant to be that way because it's really inviting for a beginner. It really it's just a delicious, it's almost like drinking some combination of tropical juices. It's so just easygoing and delicious with that little bit of like vanilla bean going on in there. Yeah, right up front you get a little crisp green apple, crisp sourness from the tropical fruit, transitions into the vanillas, the really mouth-watering sweet flavors on the mid palate with that punch of spice that ramps up, and then a really easygoing, pretty short finish. And what hangs on here is a combination of sweet and sour flavors, like the sweetness of the vanilla, also with the sourness of all of those fruits in there, those tropical fruits and that green apple. So really great combination of things there, really easy to understand. And I think for me, so far, I recommend this to everybody, but typically I point bourbon drinkers in this direction because it's not offensively flavored with sherry, which can put off bourbon drinkers. It's not offensively flavored with peat, which can put off bourbon drinkers. It's something that is easy to understand and probably the closest thing to bourbon you can get out of these three. Let's go to the Glenlivet 12 now. Get a little smell before we taste it here. And I guess I should put up the banner for what we're doing here. Jeez, I am slacking. Oh, we got some things in the chat here. Let's see. It's all good. All right, good. Want to make sure I'm not offending Mrs. Galvin. Stuart says, LOL. Aiden Craig. Aiden, what's up? Hey, we've been going back and forth on some comments and some other Whiskey Tuber live streams. Good to see you here. Monkey Shoulder is my favorite easy Scotch. Yeah, I think it's great. It's a great easygoing Scotch. It's a little nutty for me. I don't know if it's just my batch or if they're all that way. I think I have a batch 27 Monkey Shoulder. Super almond and that kind of thing going on, but really a great Scotch. And good for mixing as well for different cocktails. Rick, have you tried Highland Park 18? Rick, I have not tried Highland Park 18. The Highland Parks get a little expensive, and I've heard really mixed reviews about them. So for some reason, I've just never pulled the trigger on Highland Park 18. I've had some of the younger, I think Highland Park 12. And then we have some single barrel offerings here in Ohio that sit on the shelf at like $200, and I can't shell that out for for that gamble, especially with some of the mixed reviews on Highland Park. But I would love to try Highland Park 18. I really need to get my hands on a sample of that sometime. Aiden says, I'm definitely a bourbon drinker, and peat bombs are my favorite scotches. Peat, honestly, is a very divisive thing. So for any of you that are bourbon drinkers in the chat right now, I actually got into scotch through peat, which is a very intense flavor. It's very smoky. Sometimes it's medicinal. It's like a Band-Aid had a baby with a rubber tire, and then you threw it in a campfire. I mean, it runs the gamut, but sometimes you need a sharp flavor like that to totally flip your world upside down. I know the first time I ever had sushi, I remember thinking like, wow, this is so offensive to my mouth. I just didn't like it. And that's what made me come back for more, because it was almost a challenge and something I wanted to try to get into and try to figure out. So I think Pete's the same way. Yeah, good to see you, Aiden. Good to see you here. Love watching you work, and whatever makes you happy. Not a bourbon drinker, but I love me some bourbon barrel Cabernet. My husband is the bourbon aficionado. That's awesome. My girlfriend and I are big Cabernet people, and yeah, I think Scotch in some ways is more interesting, but I shouldn't say that here on a channel that's been primarily bourbon focused. Okay, I'll get back to the comments here in a second, but I want to keep tasting here. So I'm on Glenlivet 12 now. Let's see how this compares on the palate to the nice tropical and vanilla flavors of Glenmorangie 10. Some of that nuttiness is starting to wear off, and this is starting to get a little bit of those tropical fruit aromas as well in the Glenlivet 12. That sort of buttercream note is sort of subsiding just a little bit. So, oh, that's interesting. Very good. The Glenlivet 12 has a tiny bit more pepper spice than the Glenmorangie. I would say it's a little bit weaker on the palate overall in terms of like mouthfeel and proof and the amount of flavor in there. I would say it's a little bit weaker than the Glenmorangie 10. With that said, though, the slight pepper pops in there on the palate keep it interesting, even though it falls a little bit flat on the palate. Now, it's worth noting the proof of this Glenlivet 12 is 40%. So it's slightly lower proof. You would expect that sort of more watery and, easier going experience. I'm going to have another sip of this. Yeah, there's actually a little bit of light red summer fruits in here. You can actually get some strawberry, maybe a slight bit of raspberry. These are definitely in the background notes I'm talking about. First, up front here is the caramels, vanillas, that buttery type note I mentioned. But there is a slight bit of like these light red fruits. Yeah, and a little bit of citrus zest going on in here as well. Of course, the Glenmorangie has tons of that. So following the Glenmorangie with this, I might not be able to pick up some of those citrus notes because it's weaker citrus than the Glenmorangie, but it's still definitely there. One last sip of Glenlivet 12. Yeah, nice and easy going. Great and enjoyable experience. I would say it's a little bit more varied in its flavor profile than the Glenmorangie 10. A little bit more that you could probably pick out in there. Although I might start with the Glenmorangie 10 only because there's a slight bit less spice in there, and again, more of an understandable flavor profile when you can just simply say vanilla, tropical fruits, and someone goes, "Oh yeah, okay." That would be my recommendation. But Glenlivet 12, seriously great, and a little bit of a longer finish here as you have that pepper spice in the mouth. Oh wow, lots in the chat. All right, let's see what we got going here. Aiden, they tend to have an oily nut flavor to them. Yes, yeah, the monkey shoulder definitely. There's a round almond funkiness to it behind that fruit and malt. Yes, absolutely. Okay, you put it in words exactly right. I need to taste monkey shoulder again also. I need to get back into that. Barn Door, Glenlivet Caribbean Reserve is one of the few scotches I like. Not a fan of the peated stuff. I haven't tried the Caribbean Reserve yet, but I know that that's one of those scotches that bridges the gap. Like there are a few of those, and I think Glenlivet's really been leading the charge on that. They have one called Founders Reserve, which I believe is primarily first or brand new American white oak casks to give more vanilla flavors in order to bring more bourbon drinkers over to Scotch. That's definitely like a crossover there. And then the Caribbean Reserve, obviously playing on sort of those rum characteristics and things like that, I think, again, makes Scotch a little more approachable. So I think Glenlivet leads the charge in that. Although Glenfiddich also has a 14-year-old bourbon barrel reserve, that's also a really great one to get bourbon drinkers over into the world of Scotch, I think. We all enjoy waiting. No shame in that. Absolutely. Nick, fiance, yeah, newly engaged. Have I done a live stream since that? I think I have. I can't remember, honestly. The time is irrelevant at this point. But yes, I am engaged, and she's in the other room watching TV. But she was so nice to mix up my pours behind me. So thank you, Sarah. Love you. Aiden, I really like Joseph. Oh, okay. We're talking wine here. I'm not going to get into that. Don't know much about that. Josh McClellan, acquired taste, trained palate are legit things, but the catch is that something great can taste like absolute garbage at first and taste great later, vice versa. That is so true. And that's kind of what I'm trying to keep in mind here with these pours, is like the Glenlivet 12, I think in some ways could be off-putting. Even though it's a great malt, it could be slightly off-putting to a beginner drinker, whether they're familiar with other whiskeys or not. So I think, again, this seems approachable at all levels. And if you put it over ice, which of course will drown it very quickly at 43% ABV, it's going to get even more approachable and delicious and probably refreshing with those tropical fruit notes. So yeah, Josh, you're totally right about that. If you see something is great and high quality, non-dry, I see merit in things. Let's see. You work as a liquor expert, putting things. What do you do exactly? That's awesome. That's very, very cool, Aiden. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, let's get back to it. Boom. Let's get the banner back up. All right, last pour here. Glenfiddich, 12-year. I tried to say that properly. Glenfiddich. That little CH at the end. Here we go. Cheers, y'all. Nice. That is very, very good. Yeah, and I tend to like a lot of the Glenfiddich products. The 15-year Solera is about $70 per bottle. That is like an all-time great, middle-of-the-road, easy, approachable Scotch. For someone who's a little bit familiar with Scotch, get them a Glenfiddich 15, and you can't go wrong with that. It's such a great choice. It's got a little bit of everything going on in there. And this Glenfiddich 12, it's really easy to see now how all the Glenfiddich offerings translate from one to the other. They all have that same base single malt characteristic, and you can see how they evolve throughout the different offerings. That's very, very cool. I'm going to get to that in just a second here. Typing something into the computer here. Okay. Yeah. Great. All right. So, and it's worth noting, too, that this Glenfiddich 12 is a combination of American oak and sherry casks. So you are getting a little bit more fruit in here from those sherry casks as compared to this Glenmorangie. You're getting a more varied experience with the Glenfiddich 12. Yeah, you're definitely getting like some nice orange going on in here. I talked about the herbal and vegetal green notes of the Glenfiddich 12. Nice dose of vanilla. Little bit of spice, little pop of spice in there, but you're also, again, kind of like the Glenlivet, getting some of those red fruits. But I don't think the sherry is as obvious on the nose as it is the palate. So I'm going to have one more sip here of the Glenfiddich 12. Spice right up front. Slight sherry funk. There's that sort of dark stewed fruit note. Again, very light in here. They haven't added too much sherry to this mix. Too much sherry aged Scotch. There's some oak. There's like some darker European, what am I saying here? Yeah, European oak going on in here on the back palate and the finish. A little bit of that tannic drying oak. And I don't think you get as much of that on these other two. And that makes me really like this Glenfiddich quite a bit. So here's what I would say. I actually tasted these inadvertently in an order that I'm going to put these in for the first-time drinker. And I think we're doing pretty good on time here, right on schedule. You can hear a big old truck outside. Sorry about that. I'm still going to go by this and say that a first-time bourbon drinker, lead them to the Glenmorangie 10. Or if it's you, go to the Glenmorangie 10. I think it's like a $40 bottle. All of these are probably right around that $40 mark. The vanilla, the tropical fruit, very approachable. The casking is ex-bourbon and new American oak casks. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler and better and approachable than that. Secondly, I would go to the Glenlivet 12. I think just because it's not as vegetal and herbal as the Glenfiddich 12 and doesn't have quite as much sherry influence, at least in my mind, it's a little more easygoing. I would go here next. Although you could even start with this before the Glenmorangie if you wanted. And finally, after that, I would then approach the Glenfiddich 12. And check this out because it has just some different notes than these other two that are going to lead you further down the path. I think one thing that we tend to talk about, or I talk about with Scotch, is like introducing flavors one by one so that someone can really get their bearings with Scotch. So this is why I also have these bottles back here as well, because I'm going to talk about these very quickly. You know, I'll get to the chat in just a second. I see lots of comments going on here. But I tend to think that we should introduce flavors one by one. And the most confusing or most off-putting flavors to someone that's unfamiliar would be sherry, something that's aged in a sherry cask, and peat. And I those are my two. I know other people might have differing opinions. But the first one to introduce someone to, in my mind, is sherry, because there are so many sherried scotches or scotches that are a blend of 12-year-old sherry scotch and 12-year-old, aged in ex-bourbon casks or whatever. There's some level of sherry influence in so many scotches, and you need to get used to that. So something like this Glenfiddich 12 is a great way along your progression to introduce the flavor of sherry just slightly and then go, okay, let's crank this up just a little bit. And when you do, you might consider going somewhere like this first, to the Compass Box Spice Tree. This is a blended malt. It's a blend of single malts. It is not like Johnny Walker where it's a blend of any grain whiskeys. This is a blend of single malt, so it's a little more transparent, a little more quality. And this has a nice bit of sherry influence in it, spicy European oak going on in there. And it will sort of bring your sherry tasting to the next level. And after that, you could then go to something aged exclusively in sherry casks, which would be something like this Macallan 12. And this is a great example, a great baseline example of what a sherried scotch is. Macallan is sort of a staple. You've seen it all over the place. And so that would be my progression to introduce that sherried flavor. Then you kind of fork off and go the other way, which is the peated flavor. And that's that smoky, sort of medicinal or campfire type flavor that's in a lot of scotches. And with that, I first introduce people to Johnny Walker Black or Johnny Walker Red. And it's a great way to get a nice full malty backbone from the barley in there. But also, you can get a little bit of that peat smoke. But it's blended so well in the Johnny Black and in the Johnny Red that I think it's approachable for someone who's had 5, 6, 7 scotches up to that point, like the ones we're talking about here. After the Johnny Walker Black, they're over there. It's going to be hard for me to get them. You can go to a Lafroig and Ardbeg, a Lagavulin, and really amp up your peat levels there. But there are, of course, other options to do this with, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole right now, but that's sort of my spiel. So yeah, great scotches here. Honestly, you can't go wrong with Glenmorangie 10, Glenlivet 12, or Glenfiddich 12. You really can't, but I would start with the Glenmorangie. I'm a little bit biased. Let's check out the chat and see what we got going here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Those of you who are here right now, we've just concluded the first part of this live tasting, and we're going to move on to the second part in just a second after I do some housekeeping things and check out the chat and ask you all, please, right now, if you wouldn't mind, if you're tuning in, please go ahead and like this video. We have 14 in the chat right now, only 6 likes. So it'd be great if you would consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. That would be such a help. This channel has been taking off so much in the past few days. It's kind of boggled my mind, as I said at the beginning of the live stream. And I've got some more videos coming out this week. I'm going to be shooting a lot of content tomorrow. And then for the rest of the week, I have to record a bunch of virtual concerts in my studio in my basement for some orchestras and some different recital series. So I might be like off the Drums and Drams grid for a few days as I record all of that material and edit all of it together. And then I will surface from my underground lair and pump out a bunch of new content and another live stream next Monday. So that's what we have coming up. The Stag Junior Batch 15 video has taken off recently, which has been amazing. And yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. So I see 9 likes. Got a couple more here. Thank you so much for those of you who just liked the video. I really appreciate it. Let's move on now. But I'm going to check out the chat here. Oh, I missed quite a bit. Congrats on the engagement. Thank you, Aiden. I work for a large liquor store and spirits. Yeah, Aiden, I tell you what, this is like my dream job. And, you know, like full-time right now, or I guess with COVID, less than half-time. I'm a musician, and I'm touring, and I'm all over the place. But I tell you what, I've found a love for the spirits industry, and it's something that I want to continue dipping my toe in and really seeing how far I can go with this YouTube channel being sort of the first foray into all of that. So that's awesome. Rick says, I've recommended Redbreast 12 to bourbon friends as a bridge to Scotch. I think that's a great call, too. I think, like, for me, the Redbreast 12 would have scared me off personally a little bit because of how green and vegetal it is. But I think Redbreast 12 is an incredible drink. And the sherry-aged Redbreast, Lestau, I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. That is an incredible drink. I really love that one, but it's a little bit funky. That would be one that I wouldn't introduce people to just at first. And of course, the Redbreasts only get better as you age them even more. I would love to own a bottle of the 27-year, but it's so darn expensive. Nick, are these high lowland, Isla? What are the general flavor profile per region? Hey, that's a great question. So let's talk very quickly about what we've got here. You know, the Glenmorangie 10, this right here is a Highland single malt Scotch whiskey. What else do we have here? Goodness gracious. I think these are both Speysides, the Glenlivet and the Glenfiddich. I believe they're Speysides. I should know that. I'm so sorry that I don't know that. Well, that's okay, though. But yeah, we're not talking, right now, what we're not talking about is Lowland Scotch. We're not talking about Isla Scotch. And we're not talking about Campbelltown Scotch. Those are totally different. And all of these back there, yeah, we don't have any of that going on here. The sort of signature Scotch from Campbelltown would be Springbank or Longrow. There's a couple there. If you're talking about Isla, you're talking about Brookladdy, Lagavulin, Lefroy, Ardbeg. And if you're talking about Lowlands, there's only a few, and I'm not so familiar. Auchentoshan, I believe, Glenkenshie. So none of these are those, Nick. Mostly Highland and Speyside. Don't want to put you down, bud, but that's not a Scotch. Very nice whiskey, though. Oh, talking about Redbreast as a bridge to Scotch. You're right. I didn't recognize this. Yeah, no, that's an Irish whiskey for sure, but still a great bridge to get into some different flavors. Absolutely. Let's see. Wow, so much in the chat. This is great. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're about to get to the second part of the stream. Yes on the Macallan. That's Macallan's a pretty great bridge to Scotch. That's interesting, Josh. Interesting comment there. A pretty great bridge from those into rye whiskeys. I've never thought about someone who's particularly into rye and how to transition them. I'd have to think about that. It would have to be something in my mind that would be a little bit spicier. Macallan 12 definitely has baking spice, but the rye would make me think more something vegetal or, you know, minty spice or something like that. I'd have to give that a little bit of thought, but that's a good comment. Okay, let's go to the second thing here. I have to get up and grab these bottles so that I can transition. Give me like 30 seconds here, and if you don't mind, smash that like button, as all the YouTubers say. I've got to grab my pours back here of my 1792s that I'm going to try to blind taste and figure out. Okay. Now you can see that I'm wearing sweatpants. Got to stay comfy on these live streams, you know. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and get these 1792 full proofs up here on the old drum. All right, so let's get to it. I'm a little nervous for this one. So like I told everybody at the beginning of the stream, this is what we are doing right now. I have 3 different bottlings of 1792 full proof. I have a regular old shelfer here, courtesy of Party Source in northern Kentucky, right across the river. I have I have a bottle here that I snagged on the secondary market, but at a very fair price, like 50, 55 bucks. You cannot complain at that price. This is a single barrel select by Pinky's in May 2019. I have no idea where that is, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is my favorite of this bunch. It has more oak than the other ones. I'm assuming it's an older version, an older barrel of 1792. And, you know, I think it balances a lot of those ethanol and lighter banana flavors really, really well. But again, we're blind today, so I'm hoping I can pick this one out, but I have no idea because I have not drank any of these for a month or two. So I'm shooting blind here, shooting in the dark. And finally, I have a single barrel select from Ace Spirits, which is a store in Minnesota that I used to be able to order from here in Ohio online. But unfortunately, with the draconian measures that we implemented this summer in Ohio, I can no longer order this. I can't order from Ace anymore. So I got that one for 40 bucks. So I've never overpaid for a 1792 foolproof store pick, and I'm proud to say that. Badge of honor. What kind of ride cymbal goes best with that black label? Nice, some sort of unlathed, very earthy ride with a very fat bell. That's what I would say. Probably 22 inches minimum. What's up, Casey? I think that's Casey on the App Percussion channel there. Aiden Craig, what kind of music do you play? Well, before we get into the 1792, so I am a classical percussion soloist, or contemporary percussion soloist, whatever you want to call me. I play recitals and I play concertos, which means I play as a soloist with an orchestra, or I play solo recitals. I also do a lot of work with electronics and with theatrical music where, you know, there's electronics playing and I'm dancing around doing choreography on stage. So I do a lot of different stuff. I might show a couple of those clips at some point on this channel, but I didn't want to bombard anybody with those as I get this channel off the ground. But yeah, Aiden, you can actually check out my other stuff. If you look up Cameron Leach on YouTube, you'll find my actual music channel, which has all of that stuff there. Nick, 21-inch rock ride death metal. There you go. Rick, love the music in your videos. Thank you. Yeah, I've been really trying to push the production quality of all my reviews, and I've got some cool things in store. So I really appreciate that someone is noticing those things. It makes all that hard work feel worth it. Ace is like 20 minutes from me. Oh, man, I would love to go see Ace. That would be a really cool store, I would only imagine. Okay, let's get to it. So for those of you who are, many of you are probably familiar with store picks, if some of you are not, basically what a store pick is instead of a blend of different barrels, a store, liquor store, or agency, or whiskey group, or whatever will go to a distillery and pick out a barrel. They will sample from different barrels and pick out their favorite barrel, and there's no blending going on. So you get a singular flavor profile that has not been blended with others, and that's the most pure way to taste the whiskey in most cases. So what we have here are two different store pick single barrels, which might be vastly different. They might be pretty similar. You know, the base spirit, the base distillate in here that was aged is the same, but they might have different flavor profiles. And then this, what I would call a shelfer, this is something that is a blend of many different barrels. It's just the batched version of this with many different barrels in there, kind of evening each other out. All the rough edges or individual flavors that stick out have all been mellowed out by blending. So that's what I've got here. As I try to find the non-store pick of these three blind glasses, what I'm looking for is maybe the most uneventful or the most flat tasting version of this, and maybe something that is not doesn't have a characteristic flavor that I can pick out, and that would probably be the blended version. With that said, these things are 125 proof. So discerning these at this proof, this is part of the fun here, is it's going to be hard. So again, my fiance rearranged these, and we're going to see what we get here. So I'm going to go to glass A now, and let's see what we get. Okay, not offensively ethanol forward. There's some barrel char in here. Like burnt caramel barrel char. It actually doesn't smell like 1792 foolproof to me, and I like that. Yeah, and I'm searching for some banana notes in here, but I'm not getting a ton of it. There's definitely some rye spice kick in here. Whew, I got to be careful. I'm going to blow my nose out on the first glass here. Okay. Great. I'm going to go one by one through the nose. I might have to go through these twice and cycle through, but I don't want to spend too much time on one and get my nose at this high proof so accustomed to one glass and so numbed out by one glass that when I go to the second one, like I can't smell anything. So let me have a sip of water here. Okay, let's go to glass 2 and let's see what this one's all about. Okay, this one's a little bit darker. This one seems to have a little bit more oak. Let's see if there's any difference in color here. I can't imagine there would be. To my eye, this one could be just ever so slightly darker. But I might be searching for something here. I might be biased and influenced by what I just smelled. Let's go back and forth. Glass 1 and 2. Oh, wow. Yeah, glass 2, much more flavor in there, much richer caramel going on. Like glass 1 almost lacks some caramel, which is like the most standard bourbon note ever, you know? But it lacks it in favor of just... Yeah, it lacks... It has a lot of baking spice, a lot of cinnamon rye spice going on in there. It has like a good bit of ethanol and just lighter flavor, some vanilla. And I mentioned barrel char, but the barrel char doesn't... When you have barrel char in a bourbon, it doesn't make it feel heavy like a rich caramel will. It just makes it... It's almost like... God, how would I describe it? It's like a rich caramel bourbon has depth. You know what I mean? It feels that way. And barrel char is just like, you're just down... You don't have depth. You just have a dark burnt thing going on in the bottom. So to me, this has a lot of barrel char and rye, but this much richer in the caramel category and much richer in terms of the oak influence. At this point, I would be inclined to believe that glass number 2 has to be a store pick based on this, but I haven't smelled glass number 3 yet, so let's go to that. Wow, so glass number 3, much less ethanol than the other two. And crazy sweet, like cane sugar, vanilla, sticky sweetness in here. This is awesome. Definitely by a long shot the most inviting of the 3 on the nose, but 3 vastly different noses, and I've never compared all 3 of these side by side before, so this is a first time for me. Absolutely. See what we have in the chat here before I go back into it. It's Casey. Super cool. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you want to check out any of that, just check out that other channel, but I'm not trying to push it too hard on here. I don't want to alienate any bourbon drinkers who are like, what the hell is this guy doing playing all this weird music, you know? Yeah, I always get banana off of 1792 Foolproof. I think I prepared myself mentally, and I'm not getting a ton of banana on these, but it could be that the first one actually has more banana than I'm thinking right now, because the second and third glass right now are much darker and much richer in different ways. That first glass seems kind of offensive in comparison. So that might be the shelfer. But yeah, we'll see. Nick, your store pick of 1792 Foolproof is Haskell's Fall 18, which I believe is in Minnesota as well. Shares the char caramel, medium oak, rye kick at the end. Background dances around green apple, which that's interesting. Sounds like a good combination of things, you know. Our whiskey age more consistently. Yeah, man, I would really appreciate that. Go ahead and check it out. Kyle Peters joining the chat. Just got done with work. Glad I could catch some stream. What's up, man? Hey, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Strange times for all of us musicians, but I miss you, buddy. I was going to come up to Rochester in December, early December, and then they shut everything down again in New York, and there was no point in coming up. Sounds like we got a helicopter flying overhead. See, I live in a semi-sketchy neighborhood, so sometimes you get these helicopters, and you just got to wonder what the hell's going on out there. For those of you in the chat right now, if you would please consider liking this video, I would really appreciate it. We got 12 in the chat, 9 likes. If we could get to 12 likes, that would be awesome. That would be amazing. I would appreciate it so much. And, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There's a lot of great content on there and a lot of great content coming out very soon. So let's get back to it. Okay. I'm going to take one more quick nose on all of these, and then I'm going to go to the palette and see if I can find the non-store pick. Yeah. Okay. So now as I come back to glass number one, this to me is the brightest. There definitely is banana in here, but there's also a little bit of pineapple. Yes, absolutely some pineapple. It almost reminds me of Glenmorangie 10 in some ways. Tons of rye kick, some sharp peppers, just very sharp and ethanol driven and light on that first glass. Glass number two, earlier I said had some more oak to it, had a deeper, richer caramel. Let's see if that holds true here. Oh, yes. That is like caramel, like baked caramel apple, those kind of flavors you would imagine. Just really rich, nice oak. It smells viscous, smells almost maple syrupy. Very great. Really like that. And now glass number three. Glass number three reminds me of like a slightly watered down Stag Junior Batch 12. That's very specific. But it's like, it's got that Buffalo Trace honey note. I said the first time I nosed glass three that this was very vanilla and cane sugar forward and just sweet, kind of sickly sweet almost. But it's almost taking on honey characteristics of a Buffalo Trace product. And the proof kicks like Stag Junior. Of course, it's right around that same proof here. But you're also getting some nice fruity notes in there as well with that sweetness. It's really reminding me, again, of like a watered down Stag Junior. And I can arbitrarily say batch 12 because it's the sweetest one that I have. Great. Well, let's go ahead and go to the nose here. As of right now, I am thinking the glass number one is the Shelfer, the regular old non-store pick. I think that glass number two is the Pinky's barrel because I remember from when I got this that it had some more oak on it. And I would think that a store pick also would have more oak, be a little bit richer. Glass number two is that. And that leaves number three as being the Ace store pick. Maybe they picked a particularly sweet barrel for this, but maybe it's just different enough because I'm assuming that the really sharp smelling and abrasive one that I have here, I'm assuming that is the non-store pick, the average one, but I have no idea. So let's taste them on the palate here. Cheers. Glass number one. Yeah. Glass one is sharp. Jesus. Oh, there's that banana. Oh, goodness. So I'm seeing something in the chat about the color of banana. I would say this is a nicely speckled banana. Brown speckles. Gosh, yeah, batch one, or glass one, rather, is all of those sharp notes. More caramel on the palate, more richness on the palate than on the nose. That's to be expected from a foolproof whiskey, of course. But tons and tons of rye spice, tons of banana, and just a crap load of ethanol going on here. I'm going to go ahead and move on to glass two and see what we get. Give my palate a quick little break here. Rick, I got to head out of here. Hey, thank you, Rick, for tuning in. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. It really means a lot. And seeing you interact in the chat and hang out, man. Have a great rest of your night. And maybe I'll see you next week or in the comment section of a video. Cheers, man. What else we got here? As I rest my palate before I taste glass two, got some whiskey here I got to send you. Made in Rochester, Iron Smoke. I'd be very curious, Kyle. That'd be awesome. Let's link up about that. I'd love to send you some whiskey as well. It's me. Where do I? Oh yeah, there's that color banana conversation that's going on here. Okay. Yeah. See you later. See you later, Rick. Awesome. Okay, let's get to it now. 11 likes on the video. Thank you all so much. Glass number two now. Let's see what we get here. I'm suspecting that this is the Pinky's store pick. Let's see. More ethanol on the nose than last time. All right, let's go to it. Woo! That is so much better. Oh my God. That is so mouth coating and so viscous and thick, and it just explodes with flavor. There is a just there's so much cherry in that. Oh, it's so delicious. So much caramel and oak and cherry. Like hints of smoke almost. Like that barrel char smokiness that's in here. It almost gets a little bit pungent on the palate from that smoky note. But I can't even tell you how much more flavorful and how much of a better experience it is to drink glass number 2. If that's not a store pick, I don't know what is. Wow. I don't need a second sip of that, but my gums are on fire right now from all that just rich baking spice. I love it, but let me get another quick little sip of water before we go to glass number 3. There's a little bit of stale bread, cardboard at the end of that. Just a little bit. All right, glass 3. Let's see if this sweetness translates to the palate. Yeah. Definitely a little bit lighter than glass number 2. There's a little bit more green apple in this. And I don't mean like sour, sharp green apple. I mean, it's intermingling well with the caramel and all that kind of thing. It's not standing out that much. There's a good bit of like Luxardo cherry in glass number 3, kind of like glass number 2. Oh man, there's a lot of oak on the end of this one too. On the whole, I think it might be a little bit lighter in the front palate than glass number 2. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and forth on glasses 2 and 3. Again, I think I've solved the old find the store pick puzzle, and I think it's number 1, but I don't know for sure. And I would love if my memory served me correctly and I could identify these other 2 store picks and pick them out. So just give me like 2 minutes here, and I'm gonna try to figure this out. Again, if my memory serves me correctly, Pinky's was a little more oak forward and richer, and Ace Spirits was not. So let me try to figure out which of these I believe the Pinky store pick is. So I'm just going to go glass 2 and 3 real quick. This is glass 2. Okay, in glass 3. God, this is a tough call. Okay, I'm going to stick with my original gut intuition. Okay, and I am going to say that, sorry, I had a moment there. Did you see that? I just totally checked out. I was worried that I didn't write down where I originally placed the glasses before Sarah mixed them up for me and then wrote her order. I did. It's in my phone. I need to stop freaking out. Okay, glass number 1, I'm going to say Shelfer, glass 2, this store pick, glass 3, Ace store pick. Here's my note card here, 1792. Let's hold it up to the camera. Is it going to catch it? Is it going to catch it? A, C, and B. Let's see what I have on my phone. Let's see how I did here. Oh, yeah. So I have written down, oh, you're probably not going to be able to see that. A, non-store pick. Kaboom. Found it. B was the Ace store pick. Well, number 1, I win the challenge. Thank God. But number 2, Ace store pick is B, and B is 3rd in this lineup. And that's what I said. That was the sweeter one because I said Pinky's. C, number 2, was going to be the darker oakier one. So, A+ on that challenge. It's always so nice when you blind taste something and you get it correct, and you can like have your confidence back, especially after most blind tastings, which are catastrophic failures. Speaking of blind tastings, before I get into the chat and see what everyone is saying right now, I have a new series coming out this week. I'm going to shoot the video tomorrow, and I actually have some of the prop items right here in front of the camera. So this is very 1990s of me, very much like a 26-year-old. But for those of you familiar with Pokemon, this is Ash Ketchum's hat. I was a big Pokemon kid growing up, but there's a screen it's like, what's that Pokemon, right? Or who's that Pokemon? And it's a blacked out silhouette of a Pokemon. And you have to guess, who it is based on the silhouette. Well, I've taken that and I'm going to do what's that whiskey with sort of the same Pokemon looking graphics. I might be able to show you a picture here in a second if I can find it on my computer. But it's going to be something where my fiance pours me anything from any bottle of whiskey in this room, 150 plus bottles, and I have to nose and taste through it blind and figure out what it is. And the final answer will be inside this cute little Pokeball Christmas ornament folded up on a note card. So I'm really excited about that, and I think it's going to be an awesome sort of weekly challenge thing with some video game music, and it's just going to be fun and something different than just like a 20-minute bourbon review. So let's check out what we got in the chat here. Have a good night. Okay. Corrugated or sheet cardboard. Bottle kill on my store pick. Saved last pour. Vapored out a bit from what I remember, but from the neck pour. Nick, I love it, man. Every time I call a tasting note, and corrugated or sheet cardboard. Probably corrugated. That's what I would say. Yeah, bottle kill. Well, I like 1792 foolproof, and between these three bottles, I've probably killed basically one bottle. But I have a hard time going back to it now. But now that I know the characteristics of these store picks after this tasting, and the fact that I tasted them blind, and I still got some of those characteristics, I will probably be sipping on these store picks quite a bit. But this shelfer, not great. And the fact that Jim Murray called this his World Whiskey of the Year in 2019, what an idiot. I just got to say that. Especially after all that sexist crazy shit that he wrote and did, and over the last however many years. Yeah, not a fan. And that's definitely not the World Whiskey of the Year for 2019 or whatever it was. And here I just thought you were an awesome percussionist. Well done, Grasshopper. Thanks, Mrs. Galvin. Any favorite drummers? See, this is such a tough question. I mean, yes, I have some favorite drummers for sure. But because I like living the classical contemporary world, it's not that I don't love drummers. I mean, I love like death metal drummers, Alex Rudinger. Amazing. He played for the Faceless for a while. Alex Rudinger's a great drummer. I mean, Neil Peart, obviously an incredible legend. Mike Portnoy's a killer drummer. Let me think about who else. Gavin Harrison. Gavin Harrison's a sweet drummer. What is his name? Terrion Gully, I believe is his name. Tayron Lockett. Those are all some really killer drummers. Robert Sput Seawright from Snarky Puppy. Yeah, lots of great drummers. And then obviously people from my side of things, classical world, there's a bunch of those guys as well. But I won't bore you with with all that. Nailing a blind taste post-Scotch. Bravo. Thanks, Nick. I did my best. Carter Beaufort. Oh, Carter. Forgot about that one. Travis Parker, of course. In his genre, he is a freaking monster. Amazing. Honestly, the shelf was awesome at the price, but specifically at the price. Yes, Aiden, absolutely. Like at the price, and if it was widely available, like in Ohio, we never see 1792 foolproof, which is a shame. But I think it's like 40 or 45 bucks MSRP. God, at the price for that kind of thing, yeah, it's a great value. But when you get, it's almost like when you get a store pick of this, or when you get a store pick of Knob Creek over 12, 13 years old, those are just some incredible values. I'm pretty sold on these 1792 store picks. I mean, really amazing. Phil Shipley. No one else here would understand that. Oh, my gosh. Check out Sleep Token. Excellent. It goes on. I will check out Sleep Token. Absolutely. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get on to it. And let's check out the third part of this tasting, which is which Larceny barrel proof batch is best. Okay, give me 45 seconds here. I'm going to transition over. Got to move these off the drum and bring the other ones up from the table. One day, I will figure out a better system for this. Sounds like an alcoholic in here, all these clinking bottles on the floor. Okay. Sorry, I just had another zone out moment, making sure I am good to go to move these glasses. I poured these glasses out in the order of their release: A batch, B batch, and C batch for the Larcenys, and then Sarah mixed them up, and will tell me on that note card what the order is. I got to get a better blind tasting system going here, Okay. Here we go. 12 hanging out here, 12 likes. Hey, that's awesome. Thank you all so much. Thanks for tuning in. So let's talk about this very quickly before we get into it. Larceny is a wheated bourbon coming from Heaven Hill. I'm not entirely sure of the mash bill here, but with that wheat grain, which is a pretty neutral grain, you can assume that some of that corn sweetness is going to come through. The wheat sweetens it up to as well. But with the absence of rye, you're not going to get as much of that rye spice kick going on in there. So like the regular old 92 proof Larceny is going to be a sweeter, more sort of inviting experience, maybe slightly less oaky because I think it's also younger than its counterpart, Elijah Craig, which is also from Heaven Hill. I believe Larceny came to market in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a fairly young bourbon, a fairly young release. And this barrel proof, for those of you new to whiskey here, meaning that it came straight from the barrel, it is uncut, unfiltered, no water added. It comes to you at the proof out of the barrel. So it's a high octane bourbon. This was introduced just this year in 2020. And because they release 3 batches per year, there have only been 3 batches released. The A batch, B batch, and C batch released every 4 months. So when this came to market, people were super stoked about Larceny having a barrel-proof version because wheated bourbons are hard to come by. Pappy Van Winkle, wheated bourbon, right? Maker's Mark, wheated bourbon. But when you think about ultra-premium bourbons and you think of Pappy Van Winkle and the insane price tags that thing commands, and the Weller line as well from Buffalo Trace, you associate that with high-class bourbons. And because Larceny's wheated and we get a barrel-proof offering, that's very attractive and very exciting. When the A-Batch came to market, the sort of general consensus, I think I can say this, was that it's good. It needs more work. Let's see what the next batch is like. Batch B520 was sort of the favorite of the year from most people. And batch C920, I don't really know what everybody's opinion is, but I just know that it's not as good as the second batch. So for me, that kind of falls in line as well. I used to love the A batch of Larceny. The B batch, when it came out, I was like, hell yeah. And then the C batch, it's fine. But I don't have a lot of preconceptions here because I don't drink these that often. So I'm really curious to see how this blind tasting ends up. I'm just going to rank them 1, 2, and 3, see what stands out to me. By and large, the Larceny barrel proofs don't excite me that much yet. But maybe this will change my opinion tonight, and maybe the next batch, which is due to come out in the next couple of weeks, maybe that will be significantly better. But so far, a good idea and not such a great execution, at least in my book. So sip of water here, and then check the chat, and then we will get into this tasting. Come on, B520. Let's see, man. Let's see what happens. Whiskey Advocate named B520. It's Whiskey of the Year or whatever. Matt Porter from ADHD Whiskey. I'm sure many of you know ADHD Whiskey. Matt said C920 was terrible. And this is my C920 batch. I've only had like the smallest little bit off the top. So I don't really know. We'll see. Stuart says, killed it. Thanks, man. And B520 was my least favorite, actually. Okay. Well, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be a super interesting tasting, I think. I haven't done this yet. I was like, am I going to do this? Am I going to do this tasting on a live stream? Am I going to do on a regular sort of review video? I might go back and review these all 3 together on a review video. And this live stream might be the basis for that. Kind of what I discovered today. And then how that also compares to what I get in the moment in that review that I do. That might kind of combine and create that review video in the next couple of weeks here. C, you said C was your favorite. Okay, well, let's see what happens. Let's go to glass number 1 here and see what we get. Excuse me. Okay, there's like a signature smell to these Larceny barrel proofs. It's a strange combination for me. It always, like, all the batches have been this way for me, where it's like you smell the wheat grain, pretty distinctly in my book. You smell like a nice caramel, but there's something minty and bright about it all the way around. It never ventures into like nice, rich oaked territory. There is some oak on some of these, but on the nose, it's like it just punches, and there's a good bit of ethanol on this. Oh, this is my dad, but looks like my mom might have written this. That's supposed to say Mrs. Galvin. I'm sure autocorrect messed that one up, and it says Mrs. Having. That's not great. But hello, Mrs. Galvin from the Leach family. They love you, Mrs. Galvin, if you're still here. Okay, so this first one is just a combination of, yeah, like, I mean, it's rich caramel for sure. It's light cherry, almost bordering on like strawberry, like light red fruits. A little bit of oak funk going on in here. And there's like that ethanol punch constantly along the way, and it's cooling. It's almost minty. Almost minty. Very cooling on the nose. Okay. I think I'm going to nose all these first and then taste them all first. Number 2. Number 2 is less eventful. Yeah, it's almost like number 2 is just flat. Like imagine a flat soda and how it just loses the carbonation, loses the zest. Number 2 is just flat all the way around. Maybe not in a bad way, though. Whew, God, 1 is pure ethanol. Now that I compare them, number 1, that's why it was, Jesus, it's just intense. Number 2 again. There's almost like, people are going to think I'm talking about Willet Pot Still. There's like buttered popcorn in number 2. I hate this, but it smells vegetal, like like an Irish whiskey or rye vegetal character in number 2, even though it's a wheated whiskey. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Vanilla. Little bit of oak. Not as much oak as number 1. Interesting. Okay. And number 3. Ooh, number 3 has a lot of vanilla sweetness on here, like vanilla extract. Not as much fruit in number 3, but there's some barrel char in number 3. But it almost takes after number 2 in the sense that it's a little bit flatter. But when I say flat, I'm comparing this to number 1. And number 1 is like a wrecking ball going through condemned buildings and just destroying everything. Like number 1 takes no prisoners. Yeah, and number 1 has a ton of peanut brittle now that I come back to it. Like heavy peanut note going on in there. I tend to not like a ton of peanut in my whiskey. If I want peanut in my whiskey, I drink Booker's. I don't want Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. I don't want Larceny Barrel Proof. I don't want these to taste like peanuts. I want Booker's, which is a peanut fest. I want that to taste like peanuts, and I know what I'm getting into. But when these have like so much peanut going on in there, it's like a cheap note. Just like cover that shit up. It just bothers me. Okay, number 1, number 2, flatter, oak funk, caramel, red fruit, darker red fruit than number 1. Number 3 bridges the gap between 1 and 2. I don't know which one I like best, though, so I got to go to the palate here. Now, based on the way these are hitting, I'm going to taste these in a different order. If I start with number 1, I feel like that amount of ethanol and intensity is going to blow my palate out for the next 2. So I'm going to start with glass 2, which was smelling the weakest out of the 3. And I'm going to go to glass 3 next, and then I'm going to go to glass 1. That's the way I'm going to do this tasting. Whew. Oh my God. Very rich, very intense. I mean, compared to what the nose would have you believe, I said this was the flattest one of the bunch. That is eye-watering, it's mouth-watering, but unfortunately, there's a ton of peanut on the palate here, and I didn't get any of that on the nose. Um, there's the dark red fruits that I got from this one on the nose. Good bit of oak. Good bit of oak in this one. And I like, if you have a peanut whiskey like this, a peanut heavy whiskey, if there is some oak on the back end and it's full and big and rich with flavor, I guess I'll deal with the peanut. Now, for those of you out there who maybe aren't as specific with your whiskey tasting notes or the process that you go through, I might sound like an idiot talking about peanuts this much, but I'm going to tell you, the minute you taste a peanut-heavy whiskey, you go, oh, yeah, that tastes like the inside of a barrel at Texas Roadhouse, when you throw the peanuts on the floor. It's that obvious, I promise you. So, and those of you who have tasted this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, and you go back to the nose here, and you get sawdust on glass number 2. Interesting. Okay, I said I want to do glass number 3 next. Let's see what we get here. Cheers. That is much more pleasant. Yes. Less peanut. Also slightly less rich in the caramel category, though. But very sweet vanillas. I think I actually got that on the nose, too. Like super sweet vanilla extract. Yeah, cane sugar, syrupy sweetness in there. Like simple syrup. That is good. Okay, that's my front runner right now. Glass 3, great balance in that whiskey. Great sweetness. Actually, you know what? Good balance. It is a little sweet. Like, this is like that kind of sweetness. You know what I'm talking about? But balance, 8 out of 10. It's one of those. And it's just not as peanut heavy as that glass 2. Back to glass 1, or rather the first sip of glass 1, which is the most intense smelling batch here. Okay, I'm starting to get some of that peanut brittle on the nose. Here we go. Oh, wow. That did not explode the way I thought it would on the palate based on the nose. There's peanut here. It almost tastes like there's rye in number 1. There's almost like that green rye spice in number 1 with the humongous ethanol kick here. But even with a kick of ethanol on the palate, there's not enough richness to back up the ethanol. So it's almost thinner than the other batches, even though it hits the hardest in the front of your palate. Lots of pepper. Lots of pepper here. I'll get to the chat in just a second, y'all. Sorry. I wanted to get through this tasting all the way, like uninterrupted, really thinking here, because this is, weirdly enough, this is exciting for me to do this blind live, because you can't script it. You got to do it straight up, and you got to pick a winner. And you have to be honest with yourself in front of, 8 people, 10 people, whatever it is, however many people. And so I wanted to do this uninterrupted to really figure out exactly what it is that I'm tasting and which one of these is my favorite. Yeah, it's so heavy on the nose. Now, if I remember correctly, batch A, the first batch of Larceny Barrel Proof that was released, was like pure ethanol. I'm thinking that might be this first one, but I couldn't say for certain, They all hit very hard, but the ethanol is more apparent on this first batch. In my mind, number 3 is the front runner, and I just need to figure out between glasses 1 and 2 which one I like here. But I will take a sip of number 3 quickly to just see, confirm that is exactly what I think. Yeah. You can taste the wheat grain in there. There is a little bit of nuttiness. I mean, it's so slight. Red fruit, rich caramel, all that vanilla and syrupy sweetness I talked about. Great. Number 3 is amazing. Okay. I'm going to have a sip of water, and then we're going to fight it out between glasses 1 and 2. Okay. Actually, I'm going to hit the chat real quick here before I do this little head-to-head between glasses 1 and 2. How proud of this guy must you be? And awesome music for his podcast, by the way. Thanks, Mrs. Galvin. Yeah. I tend to like peanut, Aiden. You know, like, I used to really like peanut, too, and I think I'll probably come back around to it. But for me, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're going to make peanut a benchmark flavor of your product, that is a different story. For instance, like Booker's, you know, you go into that expecting peanut, and you're like, okay, it's going to be nutty, but what are the variations of this that we're going to get? You know, in this batch, we're going to have like a ton of oak and so much caramel that it balances the peanut at this high proof, blah, blah, blah. When I have something that is, like, in my mind, and maybe I'm just setting expectations in my head that I shouldn't, but when I think of Larceny, it's like, man, this is a wheated bourbon at barrel proof, and it's not Maker's Mark. We have an opportunity here to age this stuff and put it out and compete with the likes of those Buffalo Trace wheated products and on that same level, and then you get peanut, and it's like, what? Like, I don't associate that wheated, like, delicate type flavor with peanut. So I don't know, maybe I'm setting those expectations all wrong, but I guess if I'm expecting peanut, that's a different story than, like, for instance, the the Yellowstone 2020 limited edition release. Aged in Armagnac barrels, it should be so rounded out and fruity and dark, and it just tasted like peanut brittle. Like, what the hell is that, you know? So it just depends for me. I just tend to want some spice and butterscotch. I didn't see that comment till now. There we go. Nick says, what's the difference, mash and age, between Larceny and Elijah Craig? Elijah Craig barrel proof batch A120 is similar to the Larceny number 1, ethanol in the nose. Number 2 sounded similar to EC920. Let me think about this. Those are so many specific observations, but number 1, the mash difference, I don't know. I don't know the exact mash, but I thought I could be very wrong about this. Elijah Craig is either 72-18-10 or 75-13-12 mash bill. I can't remember that. And I definitely don't know the Larceny mash bill. I thought it was 20% wheat, but I could be super wrong about that. So pseudoscience here. Don't take that for granted. ECBP A120, similar to Larceny number 1, ethanol in the nose. Yes. Yeah, it's funny because both of those A batches were so ethanol heavy. The Elijah Craig outdoes the Larceny batch A120 by a mile, but yes, same experience. Number 2, which for me is sort of, yeah, Glass 3 was my favorite. Number 2 sounds similar to EC920. Let me smell it and let me see if that's true. Yes, more similar to EC920 than number 1, I would say. So I'll be curious to see what that is. Yeah, I mean, Aiden, I also get peanut on Heaven Hill. I guess with Elijah Craig barrel proof, like 9 out of 10 times I get it. Some of the batches don't have it, and those are generally my favorite batches. Although B520 has peanut, and I love it. C920 doesn't have as much peanut, or maybe any. That's a tough guess, but it doesn't have as much peanut. C920 is so amazing. B520, I go into it expecting a little peanut funk, but because it has so many other flavors, I love it. But with Larceny, I just didn't want to have that same experience. You know what I mean? It's like you have this wheated mash bill you could do so much with, and it's peanuts. You know? I like less fruity whiskey. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. ECBP is rye, isn't it? Yes, Mark. ECBP is rye. And so a comparison between Larceny and ECBP on this, not totally a fair comparison, but the fact that they both come from Heaven Hill, probably, you know, similar rick houses, all that kind of stuff. that makes it slightly more fair of a comparison. Elijah Craig is 78, 10, 12. Okay. So I think I was good on that on my first guess. I think Turkey is 75, 13, 12. Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Here we go. Glass 3 for me is number 1. Glasses 1 and 2. Number 1 is the intense experience, all ethanol. And can that defeat glass number 2, which is kind of bridging the gap here between 1 and 3? I don't know. Let's see. Number 1 on the nose is insanely peanut. Number 2 has, oh, that's interesting. It almost has a turpentine note, but not in a bad way. I don't know how that could not be bad, but it's there. There's almost some, oh gosh, like when you make a cocktail and you burn an orange, like that burnt orange, but drizzled with caramel in this glass, number 2. And I said it's a little bit green, a little bit rye feeling. But I said glass number 1 almost has more of that greenness and because of the ethanol in there. Back to glass 1. Man, this is tough. It's like, do I want the intense experience that's rough around the edges, or do I want this more middle of the road thing? This second glass, all peanut up front. Kind of hard to get away from that peanut. I need to take a bigger sip. You know, actually, the size of the sip that you take out of the glass, to me, affects the experience. Like, a small sip where you don't rinse it into your gums around your palate at all, that's a different experience than when you rinse it around your mouth just for even 2 seconds and then swallow. Totally different. So I want to sip both of these the exact same way for this comparison. So I did a small sip on this. Let me do a small sip here. Okay. This time I will do a larger sip and rinse it around my palate just a bit. Nick, I don't get a peanut on Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch C920. Me neither. And I did a tasting the other day of, I think it was only the 2020 releases. It could have been the last 2-year releases of the Elijah Craig Barrel Proofs. And C920 was the winner. And I thought B520 was my favorite, but that batch is a totally different thing. It's just different. And I see the hype behind it now. Little debate here between Aiden and Nick. I need to revisit. I will revisit that after I taste these Larcenys. I'm going to pull out my my C920 and see what I think here. Get any yeast or mineral in any of those? Ooh, that's interesting. I don't suspect I got any mineral. I'll check again. Maybe yeast. Maybe some unbaked bread notes. Maybe. I'll check that out. Flintstone. No Flintstone vitamin notes. That's a George Dickel extravaganza. Oh, God. All right. Again, glass 2. Glass 2 is starting in the super slightest way to smell like Weller 12 to me. There's something about it that's, I mean, it's so slight. And you know what? I've never put Weller Foolproof in a lineup with Larceny. I should do that right now. I might. After I make this decision. Okay. I'm going to take a big sip of glass 2. Glass 2 is improving to me. Let's see about glass 1. Let's take this off the screen there. There we go. Now let's go back to number 1 here. Oh my God, this is a hard call. All right, I'm gonna need a little more time here. I'm gonna need like 5 more minutes to figure this out. I'm so torn. Let's go to the chat. Aiden says minerality is a flavor I really don't like. I don't like it in wine. Don't like it in whiskey. Yeah, in whiskey, hell no. Um, in wine, probably the same answer. Although I've had a few wines that I could say had that minerality in them, and I did kind of like them. But it's like it's almost something in a wine that I need to be in the mood for. You know, I need to be in the mood for something that's funky, kind of like that. But for whiskey, I just feel like it doesn't have a place here, and maybe it doesn't in wine either. I'm so much more inexperienced in wine that I'm not the right person to say any of those things. Mrs. Galvin, are you inclined or have you enjoyed a good cigar with Mark Reynolds? Yes. So Mark and I went out with Bob Brighthop the other day. I say the other day, it was probably 2 months ago at this point, and had a cigar in Grove City at some amazing cigar bar, I guess, there. But it was like huge high ceilings, very well ventilated, a really nice looking place, a little bit swanky. Really liked it. I don't know anything about cigars. That's a habit that, like, I love to smoke a cigar. I don't know anything about it on purpose, because if I start to get into that, I will smoke too many cigars. I will spend too much money. And I don't like the way cigars make me feel for the next 2 days afterwards. Um, and there's some other stuff there too, as well. But lung cancer things and scares and all that kind of stuff. So I don't mess with cigars, mouth cancer, throat cancer, all that. But maybe one day I'll get into it slightly more. But I love like the hang of having a cigar and whiskey with the dudes, and maybe once every 2 or 3 months. I love doing that. That's a lot of fun. So okay, sip of water. And honestly, it's 9:34. I'm doing good on time for my expectations here for this stream. This Larceny challenge is tough for me. Let me have another sip of my glass 3, the one that I said was my front runner. I just need to confirm that this is my front runner. Yeah, that's it. It's so balanced. That's so balanced. Nothing else to say about that. The sweetness, the spice, the slight nuttiness maybe in there, but all that vanilla bean, that's great. Give me a second here. Tasting without comment. I got to do that one more time, back and forth, 1 and 2. One more time, and I will have this figured out. My palate is very numbed out from doing all 3 of those back to back, so I need a second here. What do we have here? Rob, what's up, man? Hey, I miss the hang. Oh man, I miss hanging with anyone and everyone. I've been a little lax about hanging with all this COVID stuff, like just a little bit, but at some point you kind of accept your own level of risk, of course. And for me, it's like 2 of my best buddies. Their names are Robert and Spencer. I hang with those guys, and I need that. Like once a month, we get together, we have a whiskey tasting, and we just shoot the shit, and I need that. So, yeah, I miss the hang too, though, man. God, I smoked them on occasion, 1 a month at most. I learned what I needed to know, then kept it that way. Aiden, that's like the mindset I want to have. Like with whiskey, I went a little bit crazy. I would say like 2 or 3 months ago, I was like drinking way more than I should. And I'm going to make a video about that this week, about some things to look out for when you start collecting and drinking lots of whiskey and all that kind of stuff. But like I got to the point where it wasn't about how the way the whiskey made me feel. It was like I want to sample and compare so many whiskeys because I want to learn and I want to expedite that learning process. And that's the way I am. I'm just neurotic and addictive about everything I do. But with whiskey, when you have like a physical consequence to the things that you're doing, that doesn't register up front. You know, it eventually registered for me. And I realized I got to cut this back. But with cigars, having known the way I was with whiskey in the beginning stages, it's like I need to not go into cigars yet. And when I do, it's going to be really toe dipping the whole way, you know. More reading and more research and more video watching than actually smoking the damn cigars. What do we have here? Hank and... no, I have not hung out with those guys. I have not. So I need to do that. Okay. A little sip of water. Back to glasses 1 and 2. And then I promise I will put these in an order. Sorry if you heard all of those swishing sounds. I'm sure that was so unattractive. Glass number 2 wins easily on the nose compared to glass 1. But the palate experience is different. Okay. This is tough, and I hate to be this way. Glass 3 wins. Yes, first place. I am going to say that glass number 1 takes second place, and glass number 2 takes third place. But in my mind, glasses 1 and 2 are tied. And it's like, am I in the mood for something that challenges me? Glass number 1. It's intense. It punches you in the freaking face. Glass number 2. Am I in the mood for something slightly more balanced? Glass number 2. Am I in the mood for something delicious? Glass number 3. So in my mind, this is a first place and a tie for second place, but I will order them, and I will say that glass number 1 wins. Let's see what we got. I am very nervous about this. Holy shit. This is the opposite of what yeah, this is not at all what I expected. Okay. Don't know if you can see this. Come on, camera. There we go. Glass number 3 was my winner. That's batch A. That is A120, which I thought was all ethanol and unrefined and like the newbie batch, the first batch of this release. And that won. Okay, and then I said second place was glass 1, which is actually B, which is B520, which is Whiskey Advocate's Whiskey of the Year, and the one that's been touted by so many people. There's none left, but I'll smell the empty glass. That was the one that was super ethanol intense. This makes sense. The proof on this, let's see here. Actually, the lowest proof, but smelled the highest proof. Interesting. But because it smelled the highest proof, it smelled like it was going to give you the most intense experience, which people are chasing, you know, all the time these days, these proof hounds. And glass number 2, which was release C for me, got last. But to me, C balanced out all of the things between A and A and B. This is very, very interesting. I thought, in my mind, the order was going to go B release, C release, A release. Instead, it went A release, B, and then C. It literally went chronologically for me. So, I don't even know. I don't even know at this point. I feel like I don't even know how to taste whiskey. Okay, let's look at the chat here. Here we go. Aiden, my own self-control has always been first for me. I know not everyone can do that. Yeah, Aiden, I have like the most addictive personality. So for whiskey, like I found myself for many weeks on end having between 5 and 10 whiskeys a night. And when I say that, I mean tiny, tiny pours. Like this looks like a lot, maybe in the glass. It's less than half an ounce. But I was having like 5 to 10 of those on any given night because I was like, I got to compare this. I got to compare this. And that became like a real trouble spot for me. So, and I like to be open and honest about that kind of thing because it was about like learning. And then you get to the end of the night. God, I can't even speak. You get to the end of the night and you realize like, oh my God, like this is bad, And I've been doing this for however many days in a row now. So that is scary. And for me, like I've always just gone hard and then realized, oh my God, I need to dial this back on so many aspects of my life, whether it's like drumming, my career, work-life balance, whiskey, whatever. And so cigars for me were always like, I'm going to just steer clear of that because I kind of know myself. Rob McClure, that's good. Know thyself. Exactly. You got to know it. You got to figure out your own tendencies. And Aiden, you are lucky for this. Cigars can make or break a good bourbon. I don't risk it. I grab a mid-level shelfer when I light a stick. Yeah, I mean, like, I have never gotten into the pairing thing. So Nick, man, I feel like I'm really sensitive to this. And maybe I'm just being a total weenie head. But, for instance, tonight, my fiance, Sarah, she cooked shrimp in the kitchen. We do not have a ventilated range. We don't have, like, a vent above the stove. So it gets smoky in this house. And we're in a very old, like, 1940s house. So we got to open the windows and do that whole thing. And when she cooks and I'm trying to taste, like, when I have smoky flavors in the air, I cannot taste or smell anything. I have to open the windows and, like, hide myself in this room that I'm in right now. And so for cigars, when I smoke cigars and I taste whiskey, I'm at odds, because it's like, I have this amazing cigar and I don't know enough about it to know much about the flavor profiles or how I'm supposed to be understanding the cigar and tasting it. And then I'm trying to pair whiskeys with it. And it's like, it takes away from the whiskey experience that I know and love because I'm familiar with the whiskey. So I have a hard time with all of that. And I think maybe I'll get better at that. But for instance, like for me, I don't know if anybody in the chat has this experience, but when you go outside and you have like a Glencairn glass with whiskey in it and you go outside, the outside smell, whatever the hell that means, when I smell the whiskey, I can't even smell the whiskey. I just smell the outdoors. Then when I taste it, I can taste the whiskey, but because my olfactory system was not acclimated to the whiskey from its smell, I was instead smelling the outside. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And cigars are the same way. I start smoking a cigar and then I taste a whiskey and I'm like, I can't really discern things that are going on. And maybe I'm being a sensitive little wiener head, like I said, but maybe your olfactory system needs things that really complement each other. And maybe I haven't made those complements yet between whiskey and cigar. I'm not sure. But anyways, I'm going down a rabbit hole. All right. What do we have here? Suspense. Like I said, B was my least favorite. What did I say? I said ABC. So, but in my mind, it could have been ACB, because I said my glasses 1 and 2 were at odds with each other. 2 was the more balanced one, which is C, and B was the more insanely intense one. So, yeah. Bottle swig to verify. C had the balance. Yes, A was the most complicated. Yes, but very peanut forward on the nose. A just hits hard but lacks depth. Yes. Well, not for me actually. No. A Weirdly, A had the best balance for me. But I think we're almost on the same page, Aiden. C had great balance. Yes. There we go. Sensitive Little Wienerhead spin-off channel. Dude, I need to start a YouTube channel called Sensitive Little Wienerhead. Here's what I want to do. Before I end this live stream, number one, thank you guys so much for being here. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. This whole, in my mind, experiment of doing drums and drams, it's been fun. It's been the most fun thing I've done creatively in like 2 years. And I love that people are getting behind it. In the last couple of days, I've gotten so many views and subscribers and comments from whiskey channels that have like between 2 and 30,000 subscribers. Like, it's freaked me out, and I'm so excited and honored and stoked about the way this is all turning out. And I've been really trying to work my butt off at doing this, but I don't even know what I was saying. I'm just so appreciative and so thankful, and it's just been a lot of fun. Anyways, before I end this live stream, I am going to bring out Weller Foolproof, which is another wheated whiskey to compare to these Larceny barrel proof offerings. And I'm going to bring down Elijah Craig's C920 because that was the standout batch over the last 7 releases that I own of the Elijah Craig series. And I'm going to put these next to these Larcenys and just see how they compare. I'm not going to rank them, whatever. Just see how they compare. But at the end of the day, thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate it so much. Like, subscribe, share the content, whatever you want to do. And I'm trying to do as much content for as varied of an audience as possible. And my friends, my close friends, family, colleagues, all of you people who have supported it, I can't tell you how much that means to me. And it's just great. So let me check the chat one more time. Sorry, I screwed up on the first one. I meant B hit hard, but lacked depth. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I thought. Do I dare ask you anything about Jefferson's Ocean? You know what? I have never had Jefferson's Ocean because I've heard that a lot of it is shtick. It's marketing, it's this and that. But I've heard that the Jefferson's Ocean cask strength is actually pretty good. Not worth the price point of $85+ per bottle, but I've heard that it's a pretty reasonably good barrel proof offering. But I've never had those. And I know Mark Reynolds has a Jefferson's Ocean. Maybe I should borrow that from him and check it out. Okay, I am going to refill my glasses here with the correct whiskey. So C920 was my middle glass. This will be just a very small pour. That was not as small as I wanted it to be. And B is my first glass. And then I will pull down some glasses here to pour my Weller Foolproof and my Elijah Craig batch C920. Give me like 45 seconds here and make this transition. Stick around, hang out. Please like this video if you haven't already. Please subscribe to the channel. I would love you so much. I would dance at your wedding. Thank you. I will be right back. Here we go. Got to grab these off the bourbon shelf. Thank you guys. I saw 2 or 3 more maybe likes come in. Appreciate that. 16 likes on this video. I think this is going to be the most watched live stream that I've done so far, and that's amazing. I was talking to 2 other whiskey tubers today. So what's been amazing is, like, you see some of these whiskey tube people who have these highly regarded channels and things like that, between, again, like 2 and 35,000 subscribers. And, you're just chatting and Instagram DMs and all that kind of stuff. And they hit you up and they're like, hey man, let's do a live stream sometime. And like, that is the most amazing feeling ever when these big channels want to come and support, channels that are just getting started and all that kind of stuff. And I've always felt the same way with music. You know, if I can support like an up and coming person graduating from their undergrad, and like I remember what that was like, and trying to give them connections to these certain people. So I love that the whiskey community is so supportive and all that kind of stuff. So you know, keep an eye out on my channel for announcements about maybe some live streams with some other whiskey tubers coming up soon. Nothing is in the books yet, but things are maybe going to move in the right direction, and I'm so excited about that. I've realized like I didn't get into this to monetize this channel, but somehow the channel is moving very quickly in that direction, and that would be just really incredible. So let me check the chat, and then I will pour out my Weller Foolproof store pick and my Elijah Craig C920 and see how they all compare to this you know, Larceny lineup that I have here in front of me. What do we have in the chat? Jefferson's Ocean is a summer or beach bourbon. I can taste the salt. Interesting variation between voyages. That's an interesting comment, Nick. You know, I'm going to tell you, like in Scotch, I love when you can get that briny sea air, that, what would you call it? Maritime. That's the word. That like maritime quality in certain Scotches that are on the coast. I love that. So I don't know about that in bourbon so much. Maybe it would be off-putting to me, but I need to try Jefferson's Ocean for that reason. I think it's mostly marketing. The whiskey is fine, but very overpriced. Yeah, Aiden, it seems super overpriced. And yes, that is an accurate comment. Regular bottle. And then I discovered Bourbon Tube and got on amazing bottles that are way more interesting. Yes. Yeah, Rob. Absolutely, man. Like, eventually the wallet does come into consideration. You know, the amount of money you're paying does matter, and that's important. Had a very old small batch store pick that was peach cobbler all day. I killed it in an unhealthy amount of time. Wish I could try that one, Nick. Aiden picked up an Obtanium light whiskey today, 14 years and used charred oak, 99% corn. Wow. See, I've never ventured into the light whiskey category yet. I'm very curious to do that, actually. So I would love to see what that kind of tastes like. Last comment. Yes, percussionists help each other. That's the biggest thing I try to instill in my composition students, for whom community doesn't come naturally. That makes sense. I mean, composers are probably in a room by themselves so much of the time that, you know, that probably does not come naturally. And for those of you who don't know Rob is a good friend of mine. He's been so freaking supportive of everything here, and musically as well. Had me out at Ohio University to play a recital. I can't thank him enough, but Rob teaches composition at Ohio University. So this is a little bit of a music chat here. Okay, well, let me bring this banner down, because I have determined in my mind that Larceny Batch A is the best, which freaked me the hell out. Let me bring that down, and I'm going to pour now. Again, this Weller Foolproof is a store pick from Red Spirits and Wine. I think this is I think it's in Tennessee. A buddy of mine got this for me. Now, I've never had the shelf version of Weller Foolproof. Excuse me, the like the blended version. I've only had this store pick. This store pick has traditionally underwhelmed me. And I've actually heard that with Weller Foolproof, unless you get an incredible store pick, that it's not good. That like the shelfer is actually better than store picks unless someone has picked an incredible barrel. So there's that. And here is the Elijah Craig Batch C920, the barrel proof, which for me is the best barrel proof in recent memory, probably the last 2 years, and which took me by surprise, and reminds me of some of these Larcenies. So let me do this. Let me go in my order of my favorite Larcenies as of tonight, which is ABC 312 for me right here. And then let me go to those Weller, that Weller and that Elijah Craig Barrel Proof offering. Nick says, Weller Foolproof Shelfer beats Old Weller Antique for me. Store picks can be back. Exactly. Yeah, I need to try a shelfer. Next goal for me. But I don't have $250 on the secondary market to buy one of those. All right. So Larceny Batch A. Yep. Good balance. Batch B, this is going to be the really high octane version. Whew, so much ethanol. Oh my God. My God. I still don't know why I put that second. I think it's just the experience of all that ethanol and that intensity that won me over this more balanced experience. Again, I said it could have been a tie for second. Very interesting. I think, to me, I don't know what we were talking about earlier, Nick and Aiden in the chat. I think Larceny Batch C920 is most resembling Elijah Craig Batch C920 for me. Let me see if that holds true. And not to say a Weller Special Reserve store pick couldn't beat them all. I have no idea. I've never tried a Weller Special Reserve store pick. I would love to try that, though. Those are weirdly hard to find. Before I wrap this live stream up and taste this Weller Foolproof and this Elijah Craig Barrel Proof next to these Larceny offerings, if those of you in the chat who have not liked this video would please be so inclined to like this video, maybe subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff that YouTubers say to their audience, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, this is Larceny Batch C920, and I said, I think this, in my memory, in my mind, compares most obviously to Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch C920. Let's see. Start with the Larceny. And Elijah Craig. They do compare. That's interesting. They're both really intense. The Elijah Craig is, let me see the proof, 66.4, and the Larceny is 61.2. But the Larceny at 61.2 is hitting harder than the Elijah Craig, which is 5% more alcohol by volume. That's very interesting. The youth in the Larceny barrels, which I believe are 6 to 8 years old, I think 6 to 8 years old is what the Larceny is. That youth, in my mind, is what is contributing to the high ethanol, content, the notes that you're getting on the nose and the palate from the Larceny. The Elijah Craig is at least 12 years old because it is age stated. And even if it is so much higher proof, it's not smelling that way. But there's this interesting minty green aroma from both of them. Even though Larceny is wheated and not rye, there's this greenness that compares to this Elijah Craig C920. Neither of them has too much nuttiness, but the Larceny definitely has the most nuttiness of the two. The Elijah C920, not a lot of nuttiness to even speak of. Well, I'm going to try the Elijah Craig first because it smells lower proof to me, even though it's higher. Oh my God, that's incredible. That is the perfect combination of proof, amazing, rich caramel and Luxardo cherry and oak and butterscotch and spice. Oh my God. Okay, now to Larceny Batch C920. Whew. This is silly. The Elijah Craig is in a different league than this Larceny C920. The Larceny is sharper, younger, more ethanol. I didn't even think this batch had that much peanut. Compared to the Elijah Craig, so much peanut. The Elijah Craig C920 has no peanut, and I think that's why I like it. It just tastes refined and high proof for the right reasons. Okay, let's see how this Weller Foolproof compares, this store pick. Here we go. Let me have a little sip of water first, actually. Nick says, thoughts on why and how Larceny and Elijah Craig batches would vary between each other. Yeah, the age, first and foremost. I mean, like, Larceny is 6 to 8 years. Elijah Craig is at least 12, almost, that's like half the age, basically. Same season cooperage. I have no idea. I would assume identical cooperage. I have no idea, though. Same season. I mean, they are released in the same season. Who knows about how they, are they putting these barrels into tanks and holding them for the next season to blend? I have no idea how any of that works at Heaven Hill. I've not toured Heaven Hill. I don't know enough about the releases to speculate on that. Aiden says the Larceny is close to half the age, to be fair. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, the Larceny is young and ethanol tasting, and this is my problem with it. They have been producing Larceny since, I believe, 2010. At this point, 10, 11 years old. Like, we need to see 9 to 11 or 12-year-old Larceny going into these barrel-proof batches, and we need to see what that tastes like. Because if they could, in my mind, I know, Aiden, you said you like peanut, but in my mind, if they could get that peanut quality out of there, refine that, and compare this not only to Weller 12 in its flavor, but to Weller Foolproof in its proof. If they could blend that all together, they could have a killer product on their hand. But if they stick to this 6 to 8 year barrel blend that they're doing for the Larceny Barrel Proof, I don't think they're going to find success. And I think the Whiskey Advocate rating, or whatever you want to say, calling batch B520 their whiskey of the year, I mean, I think that's horseshit. I mean, it just seems like another publication that has chosen some random whiskey by some community vote or something like that to be their whiskey of the year, when in reality, it makes absolutely no sense. So I think Larceny Barrel Proof, if we can see 8 to 12-year-old barrels going into that is going to be a special product. Anyways, Nick moved over to Willett Family Estate Rye Minty Green Pear, completely different quadrant. I need to get another Willett Rye because I sold my last one after I opened it. I didn't think I liked it. Now I've gotten more into ryes, and I think I need to buy another one of these. Mrs. Galvin, I need to know what he's drinking. Tell me what he's drinking. Yes, absolutely, Aiden. Yes. Okay. Final comparison of the night. This Weller Foolproof store pick with, let's just say, I don't know which batch. I don't know. Let's just compare it first to the Larceny batches. So my favorite batch of Larceny tonight, blind, was the A batch right here. Here is the Weller Foolproof store pick. Let me do the Larceny A batch first. That's a good batch. Man, I love that. Okay, Weller Foolproof store pick. Whoo! Much more ethanol on the nose. But the Buffalo Trace honey sweetness is here. Yeah. Sometimes there's a reason that things cost 2 or 3 times as much. This would be one of those reasons. This Weller Foolproof store pick dominates my top pick tonight, blind, of the Larceny Barrel Proof lineup. Without a doubt. That traditional Buffalo Trace honey sweetness, the grape notes you get in there, the cherry, the wheat grain, even the corn grain in this whiskey. And these Weller Full Proof store picks are usually like 6, 7, maybe 8 years old at most. Absolutely dominating the Larceny barrel proof offerings. No comparison. I hate this because it's like this Weller Full Proof store pick is like $275 to $300 on the secondary market. Damn it. It is much better than the Larceny offerings. I hope the Larceny barrel proof offerings get older. They become, blends of 9 to 12-year-old whiskeys, not 6 to 8-year-old whiskeys. And I hope they figure this out. But Larceny barrel proof, as good as I thought the A batch was tonight compared to B and then C, there is so much room to grow. And I really hope they age that spirit more and they expect more out of it than simply releasing the same thing every year of this age category. So let me check the chat one last time. Then I'm going to sign off here and get to bed tonight. Let's see. Maker's 46 at the moment. Yes, Maker's 46. Great bourbon. If Joe has not had the Maker's 46 cask strength version, let me know. I would love to give you guys a sample of that. I have more than half a bottle left of that, so I'd love to share the Maker's 46 cask strength, which in my mind is absolutely delicious. Yes, Aiden, absolutely right. Nick, ECBP is a great value. That's amazing. I think a $10 difference in MSRP. Yeah, exactly. Like if I had the choice to buy a Larceny barrel proof or Elijah Craig barrel proof, most people are like fawning after the Larceny barrel proof offerings, and the Elijah Craig barrel proof on the secondary market has never really increased in value. Buy Elijah Craig barrel proof. Do not buy Larceny barrel proof. It's easy. Good value too, assuming you find it at retail. All of mine were, and I think yes, at retail, Aiden, at $59.99 MSRP, absolutely worth it. Secondary likes to charge about $90, and in Ohio, I think we get them at MSRP in Ohio. But if you're going to pay $10 more and buy an Elijah Craig barrel proof, or even $5 more, I would buy that instead. Rob says, what is anyone else drinking? Old Grad, just because I want to kill the bottle. Yes. Okay. Old Granddad 114 for me, Rob, is like, I mean, it's really good. It's really rye heavy and a little bit funky, like out of balance towards the rye spice and the cinnamon spice. But Old Granddad 114, if you haven't made a cocktail with it, that for $29.99 in Ohio is an incredible cocktail whiskey. Old Fashions, Manhattans, Old Granddad 114, it does really well in those. I think, in particular, Old Fashions, but Manhattans with that whiskey, I would add something with it. Like I would do 3/4 Old Granddad 114 and 1/4 something else that's a little bit more floral, a little lighter. And then I would make your Manhattan out of that to just brighten up the experience, because Old Granddad 114 can seem really heavy and dark, and it can drown out a lot of things in a Manhattan. But anyways, the John J. Bowman, incredible choice for anyone. And for me, like, if you can't find E.H. Taylor single barrel, if you can't find Blanton's, all those good things, John J. Bowman, the best of every world, find that. That's amazing. But in Ohio, we don't get it. Rob passed through Virginia, and that is the breeding ground for John J. Bowman. So, anyways, I am out of here tonight. I am going to finish my night with this Weller Full Proof store pick, and then I'm going to get my ass to bed, and I'm going to record more content tomorrow. And hopefully all of you will look up this page. You'll find the content. You'll watch it. You'll like. You'll subscribe. All that stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm just having a great time doing this. For all of you here who have not already done it, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. I went through 3 intense challenges tonight. We talked about entry-level Scotch. We tried to find the non-store pick, and we nailed it. 100% accuracy. And then we evaluated the Larceny barrel-proof offerings of 2020, and the order shocked me. A, B, and C, and I thought it was going to be pretty much the opposite of that. Then I poured some extra glasses. Anyways, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm going to end the stream right now. So cheers to all of you, and thank you for being here tonight. Let's see the final messages in chat. Yes. 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 What do we got here? I don't know if the age after the demand for beat. I'm worried about that, Aiden. Okay. Thank you all so much. Cheers to all of you. Have a great rest of your night. What time is it? 10:15. I did well. I'm trying to get to bed earlier these days. I'm getting old. I'm halfway to 27. Doesn't sound old. I feel like an old soul at this point. All this bourbon is wearing on me. Cheers, everybody, and I'll see you next time.